I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Wednesday, January the 12th, brought to you in part by Vitalix. Delivering the highest value tub for your feed dollar has been the mission of Vitalix for over 30 years and is the reason that ranchers across the country trust in Vitalix to impact the profitability of their operation. Go to Vitalix.com for more information. Tuesday board bounce, which we see that a lot on your cattle futures. They typically open the week sharply lower and then they'll bounce mostly back on Tuesday. We saw that again this week, and it's kind of frustrating because it always ends up impacting our fed cattle market, and so we saw people considering lower bids, and then even though the board came back quite a bit, and even more in cases than it went down on Monday in some spots, then they start succumbing to those bids. And I don't understand why they do it, but you know, starting out on Monday or on Tuesday morning early, we saw some call-in offers at 137. I can't give you 137, but I can call into the boss or the manager and see if he'll let me give you 137. Well, within just a few hours, that thing had worked lower, and especially down in the southern plains where we were seeing 136 trade and then 135, and we even saw some 134 confirmed trade in Texas, and that's just frustrating to give up all that market position when you've scraped and clawed and tried and done everything you can do to try to get it up there, and then now are, you know, already selling cattle in the lower 130s when there's absolutely no reason we should be doing that. Still tight on market ready supplies. Packers still wanting to step up the slaughter, even though they've had some labor troubles, and we acknowledge that. But you know, why you do that when you're current and you don't need to sell cattle and you give up market position that easily? But it's very frustrating to see that. But if we had some mandates in there where we knew the Packers had to buy a certain percentage, even if it was really low, if they had to buy a certain percentage of those cattle, they wouldn't have to take those lower bids early in the week. You know, they could shoot them a 136 or a 135, and they said, okay, that's nice, no thank you right now. And then they put their feet back up on their desk and stare at the DTN and listen to the radio, and then they'll come back on Thursday to start filling their quota for those minimum requirements, and then they could get the price that they wanted. But I don't understand why we can't see, you know, get people and people that have influence to understand how that's going to work. American Farm Bureau Federation had their national convention in Atlanta, and they had voting delegates there on Tuesday. Very disappointing again. And it makes me want to rethink, and I hope some of you other people too, about supporting, you know, Farm Bureau. And especially in the South, in the deep South, the Farm Bureau is big. And it wasn't necessarily them that failed to support Deb Fischer's Cattle Price Discovery and Transparency Act. It was the ones that are out in the southern plains that are heavily influenced by Kansas Livestock Association and Texas Cattle Feeders Association that have completely sold out to corporate feeders and their packer partners. But, you know, we had, supposed to have the voting on policies and things that they support on Tuesday. The biggest debate happened over the Cattle Price Discovery and Transparency Act there. You know, a delegate from Nebraska stood up and said, well, you know, Deb Fischer designed this bill and the wording of it to fit into the policies of Farm Bureau so that you guys could support it. Because you're a voice of so many small producers out there. And they are a voice for a lot of small producers, you know. They're like a lot of us, you know, rural people, you know, get their insurance there and they pay a separate check into the Farm Bureau to be a member, and they think, well, I feel good about that. I've got a voice, you know, I've put my 2 bits in, they're going to be a voice for the small producer. But they're not a voice for the small producer. The people that have the delegate spots a lot of them are fortunate sons that just like to be in big positions in those groups, and they've already sold out, or they may have a position with some of these bigger groups that the grassroots small producers are trying to fight against. But you know, I had a lot of discussion there, and you know, they was talking about the regional differences. You know, in the different 5 areas and nationwide, and setting those, and that's one reason that Deb Fischer and her staff decided to go with that, to kind of go along with a policy that Farm Bureau had, which said we need to consider the regional differences on those types of things. Well, she had that in there, but they still refused to endorse that bill. But they say that they oppose government mandates for negotiated trade. But then 5 minutes later, when they're talking about grains, they approve mandates for grains, you know, like the ethanol and things like that. So a little bit hypocritical there. But you know, you have people like one delegate in Oklahoma said, if you increase the number of cattle in the cash market, then prices go down. Okay, does this guy have trouble walking across the street? I mean, we know that that's wrong. The more negotiated trade you have, the better your market. Now, you may not get as many premiums as you would if you was in some kind of a group, or you know, fit all the notches to get into one of those alternative marketing agreements. But the alternative marketing agreements still start with a base price, and that's going to be a higher price, so they're going to get more money in the end. But you know, and you know, then they had some people that kind of knew what they were talking about, like Mike McCormick, the Mississippi Farm Bureau president. I know those people. I've been to Jackson, Mississippi. I gave a presentation to him about this very thing. And I hope that's in part why he knows what he's talking about. But he said, no, that's wrong. We've seen an increase here in the last several weeks in negotiated cash trade, albeit because we're tight on market-ready supplies, and the market has been higher. And I'm not sure what kind of a dumb look he got from the Oklahoma guy, but I'm sure it would have had to have been dumb. But some of those other people in those other states say, well, you know, that guy's in Oklahoma out there where they feed cattle in western Oklahoma. He must know what he's talking about. Well, you know, Oklahoma Cattlemen's Association throws right in with TCFA, and the Kansas Livestock Association was just totally sold out to your packers and their corporate feeding partners there. But very, very frustrating to see how that deal went, and they didn't end up, they just rode the fence is what they ended up doing on that. So you can pretty much scratch them off for being a voice of the small producer. The only thing they said, they support some of the things that President Magoo said last week, saying that he wants to enforce the Packers and Stockyards rules and things like that. Complete waste of time. Complete waste of time having people like that going in supposedly speaking for your small producers, when anybody that would honestly look at this knows that your smaller producers benefit from more negotiated trade. But you know, it just continues to be frustrating. But what happens is groups like that are related to agriculture, they're going to completely lose their voice. We've already got the Senate Ag Committee, people. This deal is going to pass. Already got the Senate Ag Committee. It's fallen right in with what the White House administration is wanting to do, to blame the grocery bill inflation on. So we got them too. All your Democrats in the states that don't know anything about agriculture, they're going to vote for it. It's a done deal. And then you're back here trying to throw rocks at something that's going to help us. But I tell you what, very, very disappointed in American Farm Bureau Federation. I don't know if you guys read the beef read like I do on a daily basis, but Cassie Fish had an interesting one on Tuesday, and she said that you know, these packer margins are growing because our box beef cutout values are going up. They're recovering. from being kind of in a lull during the holidays and before that, or slightly before that, and now they're paying less money for cattle. So packer margins are growing, although they've been very, very profitable. And the whole year of 2021 had an annual average positive margin of at least $600 a head. When's the last time you guys made $600 a head? And I don't, you know, feeding cattle. Nobody's made $600 a head feeding cattle in the last several years. You got to go back to 2014 for that. I guarantee you cow-calf producers haven't made $600 a head. And, you know, some of you are lucky to get $600 a head keeping a cow around a whole year. But, you know, to think your packers own those cattle for, you know, maybe just a few days, maybe as many as 2 weeks, but making $600 a head on the average of all the cattle that they killed all year long. And they are just gritting their teeth. They do not want to share a penny of that with the producer, and they'll fight them every which way they can. But I'm glad to see some of these startup plants coming on, and it's going to get tough. It's going to get tough on the new plants coming on. I've been talking about that, but you know, I would like to see some of these big four maybe have to go in the red for a while, having to compete with some of these new startups. You know, any cattle producer, cattle feeder, backgrounder that you know has had to operate in the red many times in the last several years. You know, maybe the packers need to get a dose of it. Let's talk about your board for Tuesday. February live cattle futures up $1.42 at 137.67. That's going to be higher than what our weighted average is for this week, guys. We can't hold our market position anymore. April up 62 cents at 141.20. You think we can get back up that high again? I don't know. Your back months of your live cattle futures down a nickel, and that was on your way far back months of April of 2023 to up as much as 62 cents. January feeder cattle, basically just the opposite of yesterday or Monday, up $1.15 at 162.07. March is up $1 smooth at 166.35. And your back months of your feeder cattle were all higher except for the farthest out traded. And just like I said, it's just the opposite of the previous day. And your farthest out months was down 67 cents, and you get closer and they were up as much as 67 cents. Corn and beans are pretty quiet on the Chicago Board of Trade on Tuesday. Kansas City hard red winter wheat up 13.5 cents, scaring $8 again, but at 7.91 3/4 cents a bushel. Let's talk about your fat cattle trade that started happening on Tuesday, taking less money on a Tuesday when the board's up. Now just sit back and think about that. Well, I believe I'll take $2 or $3 less for my fat cattle this week, even though the board's higher. I'm very current on my show list, and your packers are really needing the cattle. Unbelievable. Look at the confirmed sales, which is going to be more than that because we had trade in the Southern Plains, and you know once they hit that first domino, they all go, but they didn't get them all turned in. But Nebraska had only 500 head confirmed at 137. Kansas, 3,200 head confirmed from 135 to 137, mostly 136, which is $2 lower than last week. Texas, 900 head confirmed from 134 to 137. And, you know, a $3 spread on a Tuesday when the board's higher, your packers are needing cattle. But you look at your box beef cutout values, they were higher again. Started out the week on Monday sharply higher. Packers are absolutely loving this, getting more for the beef that they sell because they're in the beef business, you're in the cattle business, and getting to pay less for the cattle. Awesome for them. Choice cuts up $2.18 at 278.22. Selects up $2.13 at 268.63. Let's talk about your slaughter. It recovered a bunch on Tuesday, and it's going to be, you know, competing, you know, the comparisons here by the end of the week if we continue to go as well as we did on Tuesday. But 227,000 harvested through Tuesday. That's 3,000 better than last week, and just 5,000 less than the same week a year ago. Let's talk about your feeder cattle market. Real-time index on DV auction late in the day on Tuesday based on an 800-pound steer, sitting at 161.19. That's a 7-day moving average. That was up 22 cents compared to late Monday there. But look at some of your big sales on Tuesday. Ozarks Regional Stockyard, West Plains, Missouri, 4,200 head there. The calves sold unevenly steady from $3 lower to $3 higher, but big yearling feeder steers were steady to $3 lower and didn't have enough yearling heifers to really test the market. But I've been telling you, down here in the southern plains and across the whole southern tier of your feeding sector, your bigger yearling feeder cattle, as they've been selling so good ever since late summer, but they are getting cheaper all the time because you can no longer hitch them to that April board. And then guys are seeing those fancy calves, and they just as soon do that and cheapen those cattle up just a little bit because the markets are high. It's going to cost a lot to feed them, but you can still put a pound on for less than what it's worth, and so guys are going to do that. How about Beaver County Stockyards, Beaver, Oklahoma, 4,500 head of feeders plus the cows that they had on hand. Big sale, Beaver, Oklahoma. Your lighter weight steers and heifers weighing under 7 sold $2 to $7 higher, and your heavier yearling feeder cattle weighing over 700 pounds were steady to $5 lower. Look at this automated market report from Cattle Market Central through DV Auction. Look at your best tested weights. How about 480 head of 5-weight steers, average 548 at 188.21. 666 head of your 6-weight steers, average 649 with a weighted average price of 169.65. This is your market in the Southern Plains, guys. 811 head of your 7-weight steers, average 753. A lot of these were cattle that were turned out on wheat and they brought back because they ran out, but average 753 pounds with a weighted average price of 161.28. Let's go up one of your premium sales in the Northern Plains, Kimball, South Dakota. Kimball Livestock Exchange, they had 3,500 head of feeders on hand there. Their market was $1 to $5 higher throughout. 817 head of your 6-weight steers there in Kimball, average 654 at 178.61. 752 head of your 7-weight steer calves, average 739 pounds with a weighted average price of 169.62. 526 head of 8-weight steers, averaged 831 at 163.17. Pretty impressive market there in Kimball, South Dakota. Let's go back kind of right on the barrier that I consider your Northern Plains and the Southern Plains, which is I-70, but close to there, St. Mary's, Kansas. Rezac Livestock Commission, Denny Rezac. Look at these strings of yearling feeder steers weighing from 8 to 950 pounds. Selling well, but the market's cheaper. They're not selling in the 60s anymore. I know a real-time index based on an 800-pound steer is still up in the 60s, 160s, but it's not going to be for long the way we continue to sell. And this is throughout, our whole region, especially the 12-state area where you get that index from. But all those strings of steers from 8 to 950 pounds sell from 150 to 156 and a quarter. How about some other top quotes from around the regions? How about Miles City Livestock Commission there? Bart Magid there, they have a really good sale, and they had the top quote on calves that I saw anywhere early this week. 101 head, 503-pound steer calves bring $215.50. How about down here west of Amarillo at Lone Star Stockyards? Bill Martin managed a sale right there at Wildorado, Texas. He told me about some NHTC heifers, non-hormone treated cattle there on those heifers. 110 head, weigh 773 at $157. Said that's pretty smoky. Guess they bought those for replacements, and he said nope. Guys that bought them intend to maintain that non-hormone treated program and put those heifers on feed. How about the top quote that I saw anywhere on Tuesday? It's your National Beef Wire top quote for the day. Come out of Alma, Nebraska at the Alma Livestock Auction. DV Auction customer there. 65 head, 825-pound feeder steers bring $168. And that's your feeder flash for Wednesday.